Hello, and welcome to the Knox County Public Library's Tutor Team. My name is Mr. Frederick, and today I will be tutoring grades 4 and 5 in math. Our topic today is going to be place value and rounding decimals, which is also one of the standards. So the standards that we have should go to the hundredths. The examples we're giving you today may go a little farther. They go to the thousandths and the 10,000ths, but all we really have to know is to the thousands, or to the hundreds, excuse me. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So decimal place value and rounding decimals. So when we have a decimal point, we have places to the left and to the places to the right. The places to the left are our whole numbers. Those are going to be your numbers like your ones and your tens and your hundreds and things like that. The places to our right are going to be decimals. So we have several places. Let's go over them. We have ones, tens, and hundreds and thousands. Each time we go over a column, we are getting bigger times tens, because 1 times 10 is 10, 10 times 10 is 100, and 100 times 10 is 1,000. So each place is 10 times bigger when we're going over to the left. When I'm going to the right, we are getting 10 times smaller. So we have tenth, which is the same thing as 1/10. So like if I was looking at a fraction, it would just be over 10. Hundredths, because 10 times 10 is 100. So hundredths, it would be saying as a fraction over 100. Thousands would be over 1,000. And 10,000s would be over a 10,000 fraction. When we look at the decimal points are read as and. So let's have an example. A lot of us would say 4.18. That's not exactly how we really should be saying these. This would be 4 and what's our number here? And what place value did we go to? We went to the hundredths, so it would be 4 and 18 hundredths. We have 5.218. So what place value does it go to? It goes to the thousands, so I know my answer is going to have thousands in it. So we would say 5 and, now I'm not going to go 2 tenths, 100ths, 8,000ths. We just look at this as a whole number. So I go back and say 5 and 218 thousandths. Okay. Now this one's a little tricky because there is a zero there. You could look at it in two ways. If I took the zero off the end, I would say I had 100th. But because they put the zero here, the answer on this one is going to be in thousands. So 25 and, that's not 1, this is going to be read as 10. So 25 and 10 thousandths. Let's look at this one. I don't have any tenths or hundredths or thousands. So in this case, those are just going to be kind of placeholders. They're not going to have any value whatsoever. But if I go to the end, I'm in my 10 thousandths place. What number is in there? A 9. So I'm going to say I have 9 10 thousandths. Okay, so they're going to give us a poem. The poem's going to help us memorize or help us have a little kind of cheat sheet in our head that we can use to kind of figure out how to round. So find your number, circle it, look next door, 4 or less, just ignore. 5 or more, add 1 more. I'm going to say it again one more time. Find your number and circle it, look next door, 4 or less, just ignore. 5 or more, add 1 more. So when you find your number, that means you're going to circle it. So if they're asking you for ones, or you're going to be rounding tens or tenths or hundredths, you're going to find that number and you're going to circle it. Then you're going to look next door. So you're going to look to the number on the right side of it, right next to it. If it's 4 or less, you're just going to ignore it. That means the number is going to stay the same and everything after that number is going to turn into a 0. If it's 5 or more, you're going to add 1 more to the place value that you're on. So if it's tens, I would add 1 more 10. For example, we have 4,129, and it wants us to round it to the nearest hundreds. So when I'm looking, I'm like, okay, how many hundreds do I have? We're going to circle the 1 in the hundreds place because that's the hundreds place we're looking at. That's the number we're rounding. Then we're going to look next door. Right next door is the 2. And remember our little rhyme. Is it 4 or less? Yes, it is. So we're just going to ignore it. So everything after the number I circled is going to turn into 0. So we're going to 4,129 is going to round to 4,100. Okay, we're going to round to the nearest 10,000. So we got to find our number first. So stop and think. What number here is our 10,000? We're going to circle the number in the 10,000s place, which is going to be the 6. So we have 6 10,000s. Now, we're going to look next door. The number next door is going to be what number? 8. So we look to the right of the number. We have 8. Now, if it's 4 or less, we just ignore. But 8 is larger than 4. So we're going to go next door to, and we are going to do what? Because the other part of that was 5 or more. We add 1 more. So since it's bigger, we have to add 1 to the 6. So we put a +1 up there, which means it's going to turn into 370,000 because 6 plus 1 is 7. We're adding 1 here. And then everything after the number we circled turns into zeros. So 370,000. Okay, round to the nearest hundredths place. Let's think about it. Find our number. Which one of these is our hundredths place? You should have circled the 2. Okay, now we look to the number next door, if you remember that. So we're going to look next door. So if we draw an arrow next door, that number is 7. If it's 5 or more, you add 1 more. 4 or less, you ignore. 7 is what? 7 is bigger than 5, so we're going to add 1. So the number that we circled, you're going to add 1 to, and it's going to become a 3, right? So you're going to end up with 35 and 33 hundredths. And then the numbers after that turn into 0. Zeros are just placeholders. We don't really need them, so you don't have to add them at the end. Now you do if it's in the middle. Wanted to clarify that. So round to the nearest tenths place. We are going to find our number. What is the 10th in this place? Look at it. 4 and 871 hundredths. Where's our 10th? Should have been the 8. We're going to look at the number next to it, which is 7. If it's 4 or less, we ignore. If it's 5 or more, we are going to what? Add 1 more. So we add 1 more to that. So 8 is going to become 9. And then everything after that's a 0. And like I said, we don't need the 0 here. So it's going to be 4 and 9 tenths. We're going to round to the nearest hundredths. So the first thing, we have 62 and 421 thousandths. We're going to find our number. Which one is in the hundredths place? In this case, it is the 2. We're going to draw an arrow because we're going to go look next door, which is 1, right? If it's 4 or less, we're just going to ignore it. And if you look at, if it's 5 or more, we'll go ahead. But since 1 is less than 4, we're just going to drop it. It's going to turn into a 0. So we should end up with 62 and 42 hundredths. Okay, we're going to talk about the following problems on our own. We're rounding to the nearest tenth. So in this case, I have 3 and 478 thousandths. My tenth is the 4. When I go next door, I have 7. Is 7 greater than 5? It is. So 3.4 is going to be, or 3 and 4 tenths is going to become 3 and 5 tenths. We're going to look at this one. We're going to round this one to the nearest hundredths. We have 22 and 5,972 10,000ths. We went a little overboard on that one. So what is in my hundredths place? It is the 9. We go next door. We look at the 7. 7 is greater than 5, so we're going to add 1. Now, this is where it's going to get tricky because we're going to have to trade over. 9 is going to become 10, but I can't have 10 numbers in one place value. So that's going to become a 0, and we're going to carry our 1 over to the 5. So when we add 5 plus 1, we get 6. So you're going to end up with 22 and 60 hundredths because 59, the next number up, is 60. Okay, that's the end. Now, we're not going to take out a study guide because we really don't have one on this one. But I hope that helps you better understand how to round decimals. I know it was kind of a short lesson, but I felt like it was kind of short and to the point. Math can be tricky. If you need help with math or anything else, go back and look at our old Knox County Public Library Tutor Team videos, or you can watch this one again on YouTube on the Knox County Public Library's Tutor Team page. This has been Mr. Frederick. I hope to see you again next week. Have a great day.